sir. Step aside. Secondary screening.
Is there a problem?
I have my passport right here.
I'll decide if there's a problem.
Where are you coming from?
A medical conference in Geneva. I can
sure.
show you the...
What do you do?
I'm a doctor. I work at Johns Hopkins.
Right, a doctor. You got proof of employment? You'll understand when I say you understand. Come with me, now.
Agent Reynolds had no idea what he just walked into. In the next 4 hours, his career would end. A federal lawsuit would be filed, and a $12.4 million case would expose racial profiling at one of America's busiest airports. The doctor he just detained, Dr. Marcus Williams, one of the nation's top heart surgeons, and the brother of the sitting U.S. Surgeon General. Dr. Williams had performed over 3,000 life-saving heart surgeries. He'd published 47 medical studies. He'd advised the White House on healthcare policy. He'd just returned from presenting research to 2,000 doctors in Geneva. And his phone was recording everything, every illegal second of what would become a 4-hour detention without cause, without legal reason, and without any idea that the man they were humiliating had the Surgeon General on speed dial. Before I continue, let me ask you this. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power? Drop your answer in the comments. But Agent Reynolds had no idea who he'd just pulled into that room. Dr. Marcus Anthony Williams was 42 years old. He was chief of heart surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. He'd spent 18 years in medicine. He graduated from Harvard Medical School in the top 2% of his class. He did his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. He completed his fellowship in advanced heart procedures at Mayo Clinic. But here's what Reynolds didn't know. Dr. Williams was the brother of Dr. Vivian Williams, the U.S. Surgeon General. He was the personal doctor to 3 sitting senators. He'd testified before Congress on healthcare reform twice. He had security clearance for federal health policy work. His research had been cited in over 200 medical journals. He traveled internationally 4 to 6 times every year for medical conferences. In 15 years of international travel, he'd never been detained, not once. On this Tuesday afternoon in March, Dr. Williams was just trying to get home. He'd just finished a 12-hour flight from Geneva. He'd presented a breakthrough heart valve technique to thousands of doctors. He wanted to see his family. He had no idea he was about to become the face of a national fight against racial profiling in federal law enforcement. Now here's what happened next. ICE agent Derek Reynolds had a pattern, and the agency knew about it. Derek Reynolds was 38 years old. He'd worked for ICE for 11 years. He was stationed at Dulles International Airport in the secondary screening unit. His annual salary was $87,000. But here's the thing. Internal complaints had been filed against him 14 times in 3 years. 12 of those complaints involved black travelers. 0 resulted in any punishment. The Department of Homeland Security had flagged him twice in internal reviews. His colleagues had a nickname for him. They called him the Profiler. 8 months before this incident, he detained a Nigerian-American software engineer for 6 hours. Reynolds claimed the man had a suspicious travel pattern to Lagos. The man was visiting his dying mother. The complaint was dismissed. 5 months earlier, he detained a Jamaican-born lawyer returning from a Caribbean vacation. He questioned the lawyer's citizenship despite a valid passport. The case was settled internally. No admission of wrongdoing. 2 months before detaining Dr. Williams, Reynolds detained a black college student returning from studying abroad. He searched the student's belongings without cause. He found nothing. The student's parents filed a complaint. It was still pending. Supervisors knew, HR knew, the union knew. A previous supervisor had recommended bias training for Reynolds. He never completed it. Reynolds had a pending complaint from another detained passenger with the EEOC. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. But this time, Reynolds wasn't detaining a college kid. This time, he'd picked the wrong doctor, and the entire federal government was about to find out. It was Tuesday, March 14, 2023. The time was 2:47 p.m. Eastern Time. The location was Dulles International Airport, Terminal C, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection secondary screening area. A windowless room with fluorescent lights, a metal table, 2 chairs. Security cameras were in all the hallways, but not in the interrogation rooms. That was a policy violation. It was the post-lunch lull at the airport. Terminal C had moderate passenger traffic, mostly international arrivals. The secondary screening area was processing 8 other passengers. You could hear the sounds of rolling luggage, PA announcements, scanner beeps. Agent Derek Reynolds was the lead officer. Agent Maria Gonzalez was assisting him. She would later become a key witness. Supervisor Thomas Chen was in an adjacent office. He had no idea what was happening. There were 47 passengers in the customs line. Dr. Williams had just cleared passport control. At 2:43 p.m., he approached the primary inspection booth. The officer scanned his passport, asked standard questions. Then at 2:45 p.m., the officer radioed Agent Reynolds, "Got a flagged passport here." Later, it was revealed there was no actual flag. Reynolds had requested random screening of a specific demographic. Reynolds approached Dr. Williams. "Sir, step aside, secondary screening." Dr. Williams was polite, confused, compliant. Reynolds led him to interrogation room 3. Agent Gonzalez took his bags to search them. Reynolds closed the door. Dr. Williams checked his watch. It was 2:47 p.m. He had a connecting flight at 5:30. He figured this would take 20 minutes, maybe 30. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe. That's when everything changed. "Where are you coming from?" Reynolds asked. "Geneva, Switzerland, a medical conference," Dr. Williams said. "What kind of conference?" "Cardiology, I'm a heart surgeon." Reynolds' tone was skeptical. You got proof of that?" Dr. Williams showed his conference badge, his hospital ID, his business card. Reynolds barely looked at them. "Anybody can print a card. What were you really doing in Switzerland?" Dr. Williams stayed calm. "I presented research to other doctors. There were 2,000 doctors there." "You flew to Europe to give a speech?" "Yes, it's part of my job. I do this several times a year." "Stand up, empty your pockets." "I already went through security." Reynolds cut him off. "I didn't ask for commentary, empty your pockets." Dr. Williams complied. He put his wallet on the table, his phone, his keys, a medical journal. Reynolds picked up the phone. "What's your passcode?" "I don't think I have to give you that." Reynolds leaned in. "You don't think? I'm a federal agent. You're detained. I can make this very easy or very difficult." "Am I under arrest? What am I being detained for?" "I'll ask the questions. You got family in Switzerland?" "No, just colleagues." "How much cash you carrying?" Dr. Williams showed him his wallet, $340. Reynolds wasn't satisfied. "Where's the rest?" "That's it, I used credit cards." "You flew to Europe for a week with $300. "The conference covered my hotel. This is just normal for me." Reynolds interrupted again. "Nothing about this is normal." 10 minutes had passed. Reynolds stood up. He invaded Dr. Williams's personal space. Dr. Williams stayed seated. His hands were visible on the table. "Stand up when I'm talking to you," Reynolds said. Dr. Williams stood slowly. "You think you're smart. You think you can just fly around the world and nobody asks questions. I've answered every question you've asked." Reynolds was getting more aggressive. His voice was louder. "You're making this difficult." In the next room, Agent Gonzalez was searching Dr. Williams's bags. She could hear the raised voices through the door. Later, she would testify that she felt uncomfortable with the way Reynolds was talking. Supervisor Chen was still in his office. He had no idea what was happening. A passenger in the next room heard the voices too. She would later post about it on social media. "Type justice if you think this treatment was wrong." What Agent Reynolds didn't know was this. Dr. Williams had pressed record on his Apple Watch the moment he entered the room. Every word, every threat, every illegal second. And in 90 minutes, that recording would be in the hands of a civil rights lawyer who specialized in federal cases. 1 hour into the detention, it was 3:45 p.m. Dr. Williams asked a simple question. "Am I free to go? I have a connecting flight." Reynolds shot back. "You'll leave when I say you can leave." "I'd like to call my lawyer." "You don't need a lawyer if you've done nothing wrong." "Then I'm calling my family to let them know I'll be late." Reynolds denied the request. This was a violation. It's illegal to deny someone communication. At 4:10 p.m., Dr. Williams made his move. I need to inform you that I'm recording this conversation. Reynolds looked shocked. You're what? Dr. Williams showed him his Apple Watch. The recording was running. Delete that, now, Reynolds demanded. No, I have a right to document federal encounters. Reynolds lunged for the watch. Dr. Williams pulled his arm back. This was the moment. Dr. Williams's voice changed. It was calm but firm. Agent Reynolds, I'm a federal healthcare policy advisor with active security clearance. I've testified before Senate committees, and right now, you're violating about 6 different rules. Reynolds laughed. You're a policy advisor, sure you are, and I'm the president. My sister is Dr. Vivian Williams, the Surgeon General. You can verify that right now. Reynolds paused, then he said, everybody's got a story, sit down. At 4:15 p.m., Agent Gonzalez entered the room. Derek, his luggage is clean, medical journals, conference materials, prescription medication in his name, everything checks out. Reynolds wasn't done. I'll decide when everything checks out. Gonzalez would later testify about what she saw. I saw the hospital ID, Johns Hopkins, chief of surgery. I pulled his information on the system. Everything was real. I told Derek we should release him. He ignored me. At 4:30 p.m., Agent Gonzalez went to Supervisor Chen. She told him what was happening. Chen reviewed the detention log. Why has this passenger been here for 90 minutes? Chen entered the room. He saw Dr. Williams. He saw Reynolds looking aggressive. Chen would later say in his legal statement, the moment I saw him, I knew he had a problem. He was calm, professional, and Derek looked aggressive. Wait until you hear what happened next. In the room next door, a passenger named Maria Stevens heard the confrontation through the wall. At 4:35 p.m., she posted on Twitter, stuck in secondary screening at Dulles. Agent in next room is screaming at someone. This is wrong. That tweet would later get 340,000 views. Evidence was piling up. Dr. Williams's Apple Watch had recorded 1 hour and 48 minutes of audio. The hallway security cameras showed Reynolds leading Dr. Williams away. His body language looked aggressive. Agent Gonzalez had taken photos of Dr. Williams's hospital credentials on her phone. She would later turn them over. The detention log showed that Reynolds failed to document the reason for the detention. That was a violation. At 4:45 p.m., Supervisor Chen made a decision. Agent Reynolds, release this passenger immediately. Reynolds pushed back. I'm not done with the interview. Chen was firm. Yes, you are Dr. Williams, you're free to go. We apologize for the delay. Dr. Williams responded calmly. I've missed my connecting flight. We'll help you rebook. Again, our apologies. As Dr. Williams collected his things, Chen pulled Reynolds aside. He whispered urgently, do you know who that is? Some doctor, Reynolds said. That's the Surgeon General's brother. He advises the White House, and you just detained him for 2 hours without cause. Reynolds's face went pale. He started stammering. I didn't know. How was I supposed to? Chen cut him off. Report to my office, now. By 5:00 p.m., Dr. Williams was rebooking his flight. By 5:15, he'd texted his sister. By 5:30, he'd emailed the recording to his lawyer. And by 6:00 p.m., Agent Derek Reynolds was sitting in his supervisor's office. He was realizing his career in federal law enforcement was about to end. The investigation started immediately. On March 14th and 15th, Supervisor Chen filed an incident report. It said unnecessary, extended detention, and possible profiling. ICE's Office of Professional Responsibility opened a case file. Agent Gonzalez submitted a witness statement. I told him my concerns about the detention. Agent Reynolds ignored the rules. They reviewed the hallway camera footage. It showed Reynolds selecting Dr. Williams from the customs line. There was no suspicious behavior visible. But the federal review got bigger fast. On March 16th through 18th, Dr. Williams's lawyer sent a formal complaint to the DHS Inspector General. Her name was Miranda Chen. She worked for the ACLU. She included the 108-minute audio recording, a detailed timeline, witness statements. The DHS legal team reviewed the case. they flagged it to leadership. On March 17th, the Washington Post contacted ICE for comment. Dr. Williams's sister had confirmed the incident. ICE Public Affairs was scrambling. Reynolds's story started to fall apart. His official report said, subject showed nervous behavior and gave unclear answers to routine questions. But the audio recording told a different story. Dr. Williams had answered every question directly. He stayed calm. He never raised his voice. Reynolds's report also said, subject refused to cooperate with credential checks. The evidence showed something else. Dr. Williams had provided his passport, conference badge, hospital ID, and business cards. He'd offered phone numbers to verify his employment. Reynolds ignored all of it. Reynolds's report said the detention lasted about 45 minutes, standard secondary screening. But the timestamp data proved otherwise. 2:47 p.m. to 4:55 p.m. equals 2 hours and 8 minutes. The protocol says secondary screening shouldn't exceed 30 minutes without supervisor approval. Reynolds never asked for approval. More violations were found. Reynolds failed to document the legal reason for the detention. He denied phone access, which violates CBP policy. He tried to take the recording device, which is illegal. He didn't notify a supervisor for an extended detention. His tone violated de-escalation training. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. We need more people to see stories like this. On March 22, 2023, ICE's Office of Professional Responsibility made their decision. Agent Reynolds was suspended without pay pending investigation. Supervisor Chen was moved to administrative duties. They reviewed all 14 previous complaints against Reynolds. They found patterns of racial profiling. ICE issued a formal APO. Logi to Dr. Williams. They started an internal policy review for all dulls screening procedures. Reynolds had different reactions as the case developed. On March 16th, he told investigators, "I was doing my job. I had a gut feeling." By March 20th, after the audio was reviewed internally, he said, "I may have been too cautious." On March 25th, his union rep released a statement. Agent Reynolds denies any racial motivation. He believes this is a misunderstanding. By April 3rd, after the Washington Post story ran, Reynolds hired a defense lawyer. He made no public comment. For Dr. Williams, the impact was immediate. He missed his connecting flight. He arrived home 8 hours late. The emotional toll was real. He would later say, "I've traveled the world. I've never been treated like a criminal." It affected his professional life too. He missed hospital rounds the next morning. It was the first time in 7 years. His family was shaken. His sister, the Surgeon General, personally called the DHS secretary. At Johns Hopkins, over 200 colleagues signed a letter of support. But the response was just the beginning, because on March 23rd, someone leaked the audio recording to a civil rights podcast, and by midnight, it had been downloaded 400,000 times. On March 23rd at 9:00 a.m., a civil rights podcast called Code Switch released a 12-minute clip of the audio. They had Dr. Williams's permission. By 10:00 a.m., it had 50,000 downloads. By noon, it was trending #1 on Twitter. The hashtag was Dulls Detention. By 2:00 p.m., the Root and Essence had picked up the story. Major black news outlets were covering it. By 4:00 p.m., CNN and MSNBC were requesting interviews with Dr. Williams. By 6:00 p.m., the numbers were staggering. 800,000 podcast downloads, 2.3 million Twitter impressions. On March 24th at 8:00 a.m., the Washington Post ran it on the front page. The headline was, "Surgeon General's brother detained for hours at Dulles in alleged racial profiling." At noon that day, the White House press secretary was asked about the incident at the daily briefing. On March 25th, the full audio was released on YouTube. Dr. Williams added his own commentary. By midnight on March 26th, the combined views across all platforms hit 4.7 million. The numbers on each platform were massive. YouTube had 1.8 million views and 140,000 comments. Twitter had 3.2 million impressions and 85,000 retweets. TikTok had 900,000 views. Black creators were reacting to the audio. Reddit's news thread got 45,000 upvotes. Dr. Williams's statement post on Instagram got 500,000 likes. The public response was powerful. A physician named Dr. James Carter tweeted, "I've been randomly selected 11 times in 3 years. This is every black professional's nightmare." A civil rights lawyer wrote, "The phrase 'I'll decide if there's a problem' tells you everything about the power imbalance." Senator Mark Warner from Virginia said, "This incident demands investigation. Virginians deserve answers." A travel account called Travel Noir posted, "And he had every credential. Imagine what happens to people without resources." Comment below if you think this recording changed everything. The media coverage was everywhere. The Washington Post and New York Times ran front-page stories. CNN and MSNBC did primetime segments. NPR's All Things Considered did an 8-minute feature. The Atlantic published a long-form piece titled "The Surgeon General's Brother and the Myth of Meritocracy." International outlets covered it too. The BBC, The Guardian, and Al Jazeera all reported on it. ICE released an official statement on March 24th. "We take allegations of misconduct seriously. This matter is under review." The public reaction was harsh. The statement got ratioed 10-1 with negative responses. Reynolds's union tried damage control. On March 25th, his union rep said, "Agent Reynolds is a dedicated public servant being unfairly attacked." Social media turned against him. His name trended alongside the hashtags racial profiling and ICE abuse. It didn't work. No one believed it. The audio was too clear. 3 days later, on March 28th, Dr. Marcus Williams filed a $12.4 million federal lawsuit. The entire country was watching. On March 28, 2023, Dr. Williams filed his lawsuit. The defendant was ICE, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Agent Derek Reynolds in his individual capacity, and Supervisor Thomas Chen. The court was the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. The claims were serious: civil rights violations under the Fourth Amendment for unlawful detention, racial profiling under the 14th Amendment, emotional distress, professional harm to his reputation, false imprisonment. The damages requested were $12.4 million. That included $10 million in regular damages and $2.4 million in punitive damages. From April to August 2023, the discovery phase revealed Reynolds's pattern. A legal order forced ICE to turn over records. It showed 14 complaints, 12 involved black travelers. Statistical analysis proved Reynolds detained black passengers at a rate 340% higher than his white colleagues. 6 previous travelers agreed to be witnesses. An expert witness testified. He was a former ICE supervisor. He called it textbook profiling. The evidence presented was overwhelming. The 108-minute audio recording, hallway security footage with body language analysis, Agent Gonzalez's sworn testimony, the 14 internal complaints against Reynolds, ICE's own bias training records showing Reynolds had skipped 3 required sessions, Dr. Williams's international travel history showing 27 countries with 0 prior incidents. Medical records showed a PTSD diagnosis after the incident. In September 2023, settlement talks began. DHS legal counsel said, "We don't want this going to trial." On September 18th, a federal mediator was assigned. On September 29th, DHS offered a $4.2 million settlement. Dr. Williams declined. On October 12th, he counteroffered $10 million plus policy reforms. DHS hesitated. On October 20th, the judge signaled the trial would likely favor the plaintiff. On October 27th, the final settlement was reached. Wait until you hear the final numbers. On November 1st, 2023, the settlement was announced. The Department of Homeland Security paid $8.7 million. Attorney fees were $1.2 million. The total was $9.9 million. It was one of the largest racial profiling settlements against a federal agency. There was no admission of wrongdoing. That's standard in government settlements. The professional consequences for Reynolds were severe. On November 3rd, Agent Reynolds was fired from ICE. The reason given was violation of agency standards, failure to follow protocol, and a pattern of discriminatory conduct. He lost federal pension eligibility. 11 years of service were voided. He was placed on a federal employment blacklist. His career in law enforcement was over. The social consequences followed. Reynolds was banned from all federal facilities except as a visitor with ID. Public records showed the termination in background checks. He tried to appeal the termination in February 2024. It was denied. There were no criminal charges filed. Prosecutors chose not to charge him. Federal agents are rarely charged criminally. Dr. Williams was granted a permanent restraining order. Reynolds's name was permanently entered in the DHS misconduct database. The settlement also included policy reforms. ICE had to implement bias training, 40 hours annually for all screening agents. Secondary screenings over 30 minutes now require supervisor approval and documentation. Quarterly audits of detention patterns by race and ethnicity. The passenger complaint system was overhauled with an independent review board. A body camera pilot program started at Dulles with 200 cameras. Reynolds had no public apology. His attorney released a statement on November 3rd. Mr. Reynolds maintains he acted in good faith based on his training. The audio recording contradicted everything. Dr. Williams held a press conference on November 1st. This was never about money, it was about accountability. I had resources, a sister in the cabinet, lawyers, media access. Most people don't. That's who I'm fighting for. He announced that $2 million of the settlement would be donated. It would go to a racial justice legal defense fund. But for Dr. Williams, the $9.9 million couldn't erase what happened. 2 weeks after the settlement, he stood in front of cameras. He said something that would define the entire case. The setting was Johns Hopkins Hospital Auditorium. The date was November 15, 2023. There were over 40 reporters present. Dr. Williams spoke about the personal impact. For 108 minutes, I wasn't Dr. Williams. I wasn't a surgeon who saved 3,000 lives. I wasn't an advisor to the White House. I was just another black man in America being told I looked suspicious. The emotional toll was real. I still get nervous when I see a uniform. I've flown internationally 40 times since this happened. Every single time, my heart races in the customs line. His family felt it too. My 8-year-old daughter asked me why the police were mean to Daddy. How do you explain racism to a child? He spoke from his professional perspective. I have privilege, I have credentials, I have the Surgeon General's phone number, and even with all of that, I was powerless for 2 hours. What happens to the black nurse coming home from work, the black teacher returning from vacation, the black college student with no lawyer, no recording, no sister in the cabinet? His message to workers in power was clear. If you're a TSA agent, a police officer, a federal employee, your bias doesn't just hurt people, it destroys lives. You have power. Use it to protect, not to profile. His message to travelers was practical. Document everything. Know your rights. You don't have to gee. Be your phone password. You can ask for a supervisor. And to my black and brown brothers and sisters, what happened to me can happen to anyone. Stay calm, stay recording, stay safe. He stated what he wanted to see change. I want every federal agent to watch that video. I want them to hear their own voice in his. Policy changes are a start, but this is about changing hearts. He expressed gratitude to Agent Gonzalez, who spoke up, to my sister who used her platform, to the passengers who witnessed, to the lawyers who believed me, and to everyone who shared my story. You turned my pain into accountability. His closing quote was powerful. I shouldn't have needed a Harvard degree and a White House connection to be treated with dignity. Every single person walking through that airport deserves what I was denied. The assumption of innocence, the benefit of the doubt, basic human respect. That statement went viral, 8 million views in 24 hours, but Dr. Williams had exposed something bigger than one agent's racism. This case revealed a bigger problem. Black travelers are 2.5 times more likely to be selected for secondary screening. That's from an ACLU study in 2022. A DHS report from 2023 showed that 31% of random screenings targeted people of color. TSA data from 2019 to 2022 proved black passengers were searched 3 times more than white passengers, but contraband was found at lower rates. CBP complaint data showed 60% of racial profiling complaints involved black or Latino travelers. 89% resulted in no action taken. Dr. Williams had resources most people don't. This case set a legal precedent now used in 12 other profiling lawsuits, but thousands of travelers face this every year without cameras, without lawyers, without justice. So let me ask you, do you really think Agent Reynolds was the only one? Do you really think a $9.9 million settlement changed the culture that ignored 14 complaints? Do you really accept a system where you need Harvard credentials and a cabinet connection to be treated with dignity? Because if we don't fix the systems that flag black travelers at triple the rate, if we don't fire the supervisors who ignore complaint after complaint, if we don't hold agents accountable who abuse their power, then we're just waiting for the next Derek Reynolds, the next Dr. Williams, the next 2-hour detention that destroys someone who doesn't have a recording, doesn't have a sister in the White House, doesn't have money for lawyers. Comment below if you believe federal agents who racially profile should face criminal charges, not just termination. If you think stories like this matter, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these stories. We're going to keep demanding better. This isn't just about one racist agent or one accomplished doctor. It's about all of us and the system we are willing to accept. See you in the next one.